Chapter 10. Twilight. It was with some reluctance that I tied up Spike once more, but his attempt at escape proved that he was no longer the same Spike I knew. I made sure the vines I had pulled out of the tree were tied extra tightly, then turned around. Rarity was standing there next to Axe, clearly upset over how I was treating Spike, but I had little choice in the matter. Axe made sure to keep all four of his eyes locked on Spike. I was getting a feeling of hatred between him and the thing controlling Spike. I sighed and tucked the matter away for later. Yet another question I'll have to try and get from him. "Twilight, do you mind if I take the next watch?" Rarity hesitatingly asked, darting her eyes between Spike and me. "Sure thing, Rarity," I said reassuringly. She gave a tiny half-smile and trotted over, lying down in front of Spike and keeping a close eye on him. Spike did not seem to acknowledge her presence. Rarity noticed this and let out a whisper of a sigh. "Are you well, Miss Sparkle?" I turned my head around to see Axe. Even when speaking to me, the Andalite kept both of his eye stalks pinned on Spike. I shook my head slowly. "I guess so. I'm not sure," I said lamely. I glanced over at Rarity and Spike, then sighed. "Axe, can we speak in private?" He gave me a nod, and the two of us walked a fair distance from Rarity and Spike. Soon the trees began to grow dark and foreboding again, and I came to a halt. "Now then, what is it you wish to ask of me, Miss Sparkle?" "Just Twilight is fine, please." Axe nodded, never taking his eyes off me. I found that somewhat creepy, to be honest. "Forgive me if I am placing you on edge. We Andalites are naturally nervous." "It's all right, Axe," I said, infinitely calmer than I felt. "I wanted to ask you about, well, everything. How can you travel among the stars? Do you live among them like we do on the ground? How do you see through all four eyes like that?" I paused for a moment, thinking things over. "No, those questions can wait for later. What I really want to know is, will I ever get Spike back? And how do you know about what's happening to him in the first place?" There was a pause as Axe seemed to consider what I had asked. I was wondering if he was communicating with Prince Jake. He seemed to have the ability to only project his thoughts to those he wanted to. "I will answer your questions to the best of my abilities, but understand that I will only be able to tell you limited information," Axe finally said. I let out a small sigh. Of course he'd respond like that. It was eerily similar to how Princess Celestia would answer some of my questions when I was still a filly living in Canterlot. Although, being a being from another planet, I could understand his reasons. "Okay, fine. Just tell me what you can." "Very well, then. To answer your first question, yes, you will get your friend back. In about 2 days, the Yeerk will die of Kandrona starvation, and he shall regain control of his body. The Yeerk will try to escape many times, and now that he knows of my existence here, it is imperative that he not be allowed to communicate with the rest of the invading force. As for the second question, we could tell he was a Yeerk from the way he reacted to my presence. Our two races have a history." I could tell from the look in his eyes that he wasn't going to tell me anything more. I sighed in frustration. Axe's answers weren't exactly helpful. "All right, then. What about your shape-shifting power? Are you some sort of space changeling?" "I do not know what a changeling is, so I shall have to assume no. We Andalites lack the ability to morph naturally. We can achieve it through unique and highly advanced technology." "Technology? So you don't have magic?" I asked in confusion. The thought of life without magic was a totally foreign concept to me. "Yes, we lack the strange telekinetic force that your species believes to be magic," Axe said skeptically. I was about to say something about that, but decided not to. I guessed if I lived on a planet without magic, it would be hard to convince me of its existence as well. I recall reading about Earth pony settlements that shun unicorns because they think their magic to be something unnatural. So without magic, your race evolved the ability to become other creatures and fly through space? Axe blinked in surprise a few times before responding. No. We developed the technology after decades of research and experimentation. We cannot fly through space unaided. He sounded somewhat confused, and I wondered if I wasn't explaining myself properly. Does your species have ships designed for flight in low atmosphere? No, unless you count our Zeppelins. I thought for a moment. So how does it work? Can you teach me to transform into other creatures at will? No, I cannot. In order to give you the power to morph, we would need an Esquivel device, which we do not possess currently. Another reason is that we Andalites do not share technologies with other races. The way he spoke that last sentence struck me as a bit odd. Is there a reason you don't share? I am sorry, Twilight, but I cannot say any more, Ax replied calmly. I let out another sigh. These questions weren't getting me any closer to understanding anything. Hey, Ax and Twilight! Here you two are! Pinkie shouted, bouncing out from behind a tree. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see Ax's tail twitch. I was about to ready my magic, but he realized who was approaching and relaxed. Please do not jump out at me like that. Oh, then would you prefer if I hopped? Or what if I skipped? Maybe I could prance out, or even dance. Pinkie broke out into giggles. Pinkie, what are you doing here? I asked in a rare moment where Pinkie wasn't talking. Oh, I was going to go back to town and pick up some snacks for every pony, and I thought I should ask what you all wanted. I am fine right now, Pinkie, Ax said when she finished. I have fed already. Pinkie tilted her head playfully. What did you eat? There's no food out here. Pinkie squinted her eyes, peering at Ax's face. Actually, how did you eat? You don't have a mouth. I turned, staring at Ax. Somehow I had missed the lack of a mouth in our previous conversations. I wondered if his bizarre eye stalks distracted me. Simple. My species absorbs nutrients from plants and water through our hooves as we run. Both Pinkie and I stared at Ax for a moment. In a bizarre, foreign way, that made perfect sense. Okie dokie dokie. No food for me then. Pinkie shouted, her normal enthusiasm and excitement returning in a heartbeat. So what can I get you, Twilight? Oh, nothing fancy, Pinkie. I thought for a moment. Can I ask you to check my mail before coming back? I sent a letter to Princess Celestia, and I'm still waiting to get a message back. To the normal mail? Don't you usually have Spike to do that for you? Well, yes, but he wouldn't send any letters for me. Or I guess the Yeerk wouldn't send any letters for me. So I had to use the post office, I patiently explained. I'm hoping to receive a reply from the princess about our situation. Ax shot his stalk eyes towards me. You have informed your superiors of our presence? Well, yes, I had to. You did crash through part of their castle during your arrival. Ax seemed to be figuring something out in his mind. How long will it take for the message to get to them? I'm not sure. At least today, I guess. Why? If the Yeerks have infiltrated your delivery service, they could be well aware of our presence by now. Oh, nobody would ever do that, I exclaimed. I mean, reading somebody else's mail? That's just unthinkable. Ax looked at me almost bafflingly. The Yeerks will not care about anyone's privacy, he said. They will do whatever is necessary to take over your entire planet. I was taken back by Ax's words. The Yeerks were dead serious in this invasion. I thought for a moment before talking again. Pinkie, make sure you aren't seen while in town, okay? We don't need any pony else to know we're in the Everfree. And check my mail too, please. Ooh, a secret spy mission! Pinkie started walking low to the ground, almost crawling. I can do that. Nobody will ever know I was there. That's the spirit, Pinkie. I then looked back to Ax. Do you think they could have found out about you already? I am not sure. It would all depend on how deeply they have infiltrated the delivery service. Well, I'm off. Bye, Twilight. Bye, Ax and Millie. Bye, Tobias hiding in a tree, Pinkie announced, hopping off back the way she came. How'd she even know I was here? Tobias asked dumbfoundedly. Spike tried escaping a number of times over the next 2 days. He nearly got away once, but Tobias managed to find him and lead us to him before he could get much farther. I began to see the usefulness behind being able to shift form at will, though I was still insanely curious about doing it myself. It was a great relief to hear that Spike was back to normal, though Pinkie did cry a little as the Yeerk died. I can't say I didn't feel some remorse for it. Seeing its small blind body shriveling up in the grass, I almost understood why it took over other creatures' bodies. In a way, I pitied them, too. Spike had been through a terrible ordeal, the likes of which Axe told me I couldn't even begin to imagine. Seeing Spike cry like that, I had to agree with the alien, and I thought it best to head back to my library, where Spike could relax in a familiar location. I also didn't feel like spending another night out in the Everfree. We said our goodbyes to Axe and the others, and headed back into town. There was quite a surprise from ponies as we returned from our 2-day absence. Many questioned why we were gone. In the back of my mind, I was secretly glad that Applejack was not with us. She is a terrible liar and would almost certainly have given away Prince Jake's location. Instead, we simply smiled and said the princesses had sent us on an excursion through the woods. Finally, we made it back to the familiar hollowed tree that was the library. Quickly, we all slipped inside inconspicuously, and I breathed a sigh of relief. "Ah, Twilight Sparkle, we have been awaiting your return." My heart was in my throat. Slowly, I looked towards the center of the library. Standing there was a midnight blue alicorn with a flowing mane and tail like the night sky. She was looking at us with much consternation. "Ah, Princess Luna!" I said and bowed quickly, forgetting about Spike on my back. He tumbled over my head, rolling onto the floor. I could hear the shuffles as Rarity and Pinkie bowed as well. "Rise, Twilight Sparkle. We wish to speak with thee about a grave matter." I gave a quick look to Spike before obeying the princess's request. "What is it, your majesty?" "We're certain you are aware of the strange metallic object that collided with the palace 3 days ago," Luna began. "We received the letter thou hast sent to Princess Celestia. However, our sister is busy with repairs to the castle and has not yet had time to read it, so we decided to act in her stead." "Oh, well then, I should probably tell you everything we know," Luna cut me off with a gesture. "We are already aware of the presence of the alien beings hiding in the Everfree." Luna narrowed her eyes, looking at me closely. "We wish to speak to them immediately. Twilight Sparkle, thou shalt guide us and announce our arrival." Well, that was Chapter 10 of My Little Pony Morphing with Magic. And a lot happened this chapter. I like the fact that it starts off, like, at the same time as Chapter 9 starts off, more or less. The fact that it starts off, like, actually more smack in the middle of Chapter 9, and I really like that. I really like that they did that. And did it from a different perspective. I like how they did this. I really liked all of this chapter. I mean, there wasn't really anything I disliked about it. I didn't notice any grammar mistakes. I really didn't. I just... Yeah, and I kind of like how Twilight reacted to seeing the Yeerk die. And seeing, that she kind of, sort of pitied them, in a way. I also like the cliffhanger at the end. It's a really good way to keep the reader going. It's just like, oh no, what's gonna happen with a visit in the next chapter, or the next few chapters, or whenever it occurs, or whatever. It only makes sense that it would happen in the next chapter, but something might happen to prevent it. I'm not gonna spoil it. In the future, spoiling it won't be a problem for me because I've only read the first 24 chapters twice. And then I haven't read anything beyond that. I don't know why. Just seems like that's the place I keep stopping. Hopefully this doesn't stop at that chapter. Hopefully I get to the end. Anyway, I really liked a lot of this chapter, though there really wasn't anything I disliked about it. I don't sound enthusiastic. I don't sound enthusiastic, and I know that. because I don't tend to express my enthusiasm all that openly. But I really did like this chapter. And as I like every chapter, I think so far my least favorite was probably chapter 6, but, that one was kind of boring anyway. But, I really like this chapter. I'm just going to keep saying that until you remember that I like this chapter, because you guys are all very forgetful, and I know that. I'm kidding. I don't even know what I'm doing at this point. I really liked this chapter. That's really all I have to say. It was done well, written well, and it introduced a new plot point. Anyway, if you guys have anything you want to add, you want to disagree with me on anything, say it in the comments. If you like this fic, be sure to like it on FimFiction as always. If you like my reading of it, like the video. But as always, I care more if you like the I care more if you like the fic than if you like the video. Yeah, that's what I meant. Anyway, but then this is me signing out. See you guys next week.